Hey everyone, I'm Jason Heinze, disability lawyer and founder of Claim Data Software, and I'm so excited to be this has taken a little while, but finally doing the introduction for my wonderful conversation with Rob Hartigan of Lionheart Law. Rob is an amazing attorney, an amazing guy, and I'm so honored to have him as the first guest on the Good Fight podcast. So here it goes. Hope you enjoy it. Rolling tape again. All right. I'm very thrilled to have Rob Hartigan as the first guest on the Good Fight podcast. The Good Fight is where we talk about what people might not understand, might not know about this really exciting, but also really challenging field of representing clients in injury, disability, workers' comp claims. So again, really excited to be here with first guest, Rob Hartigan. Rob is the founder, and he'll tell us more, but recent founder of Lionheart Law. He's been recognized by the National Trial Lawyers as a top 40 under 40 attorney in Massachusetts. And in 2022, he was honored with the Excellence in the Law, let me get this right, Up and Coming Award by Massachusetts Lawyers Weekly. So that's just the tip of the iceberg there. But yeah, Rob, so excited to have you on. Thanks for joining today.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me as your first guest. I'm honored. So thank you.
No, it's an honor to have you, and also you're a brave man for being a guinea pig in this in this new endeavor. So
it's all good, man. Looking
yeah,
forward to it.
great. Me too. So I've read on your website a little bit about how you got started doing this work, and I think that's an interesting place to start if it's okay for you. I read that and we actually, we've talked before, obviously, but I haven't wanted to talk about this too much to keep things fresh for the podcast. But you obviously on your website mentions that you got started with this work because of an injury that your mother suffered. And my plan with this show is to get people to talk about maybe what got them interested in this work, got them started in this line of work. So I would assume we would start there, unless there's another origin story that which isn't on your website that I haven't heard about.
Yeah, no, that's I think that's a pretty good place to start. So just to give you more context as far as what inspired me to pursue this path to becoming a personal injury lawyer. So before I was born, my mother was the victim of a drunk driver. She suffered a traumatic brain injury. She was in a coma. I had to learn how to walk and talk again. It was pretty catastrophic.
Wow.
And a few years after that, I was born, and so it was really the only version of my mother had ever known. And so I got to witness and experience what it was like having a family member, having a parent who had suffered a traumatic brain injury, and basically how it affects your entire life going forward. She was pretty young when it happened, late 20s.
Okay.
So with brain injury victims, it really affects all aspects of their life. And my mother wasn't able to work. So single mom, we grew up public housing, didn't have really a lot. Not to, say we had the worst situation in the world, but, when you have a parent who has suffered that type of injury and can't work, and you're in a low income situation, it poses certain challenges. But for me, it was, as part of her case, she had a lawyer, and it wasn't any sort of big recovery or anything that would have been life changing money, or would have taken care of her for the rest of her life. But I really just grew this sense of empathy for people who had been injured due to somebody else's negligence, and I try to carry that with me in practice. And I think that it's something, if you're going to be a successful personal injury lawyer, I think you need to have that sense of empathy. You need to care about your clients. The best personal injury lawyers, best personal injury trial lawyers throughout the country, um, they do have that. That's something I aspire to be someday, to be on that level. But for me, it's just being able to connect with your client, understand what they're going through. And when you've, come from, that type of background, I think you approach things differently, you approach clients differently than, from different than somebody who'd never had that experience.
Right. So that it's interesting. I want to yeah, I want to pursue that thread, but and maybe as I do the podcast longer, I'll get better about sort of um you know um let's say constraining my own curiosity. But I think that I could see someone going through your situation and saying, this happened to me, and so now I want to be a DA, right? I want to I want to prosecute people, or I want to be a cop, or right. So rather than representing the victim, trying to punish or catch the perpetrator, something like that. Do you think? I'm just curious if those other if those other kind of lines of work ever interested you, or did you always find yourself more drawn to that empathizing with the victim?
I I was always drawn to representing people, um, versus representing an insurance company or representing, the government.
Right.
Um, for me, it was fighting for the individual, and that's the path I wanted to pursue. Um, because you're fighting for somebody, and you're going up against billion-dollar insurance companies, right? Um, and you're the person in your client's corner who's standing up fighting for them in times when they don't have anybody else, right? And they're putting their entire trust and their future in your hands. Um, and when you're successful and you're able to get justice for your client, I can't think of any better reward, than to be able to help somebody in that situation.
Right. Right. No, I think um, that's interesting. I think that's a large part of what led me to do the disability work, was that similar sense that you are helping someone who finds themselves really unable to help themselves when they're in a very serious, right, very serious predicament. And
Yeah, and for disability claims, uh, I don't handle disability claims, but I know that those cases, they're particularly challenging because of how long they take, right? Um, and it's obviously a different type of case than, say, your personal injury tort case. Um, but it's a lot of paperwork, and it's you're relying on the government to make a determination. And so yeah, it's in those situations where somebody has suffered a life-changing injury and they've got no money coming in, that they're depending on that disability check. um, I mean, that's really that line of work too. You're standing up for somebody, trying to get them help. So
yeah, well, I found it extremely gratifying. On the other hand, I also found it, I mean, to be honest, like pretty pretty draining at times, right? I mean, it's because the stakes can be high, and because there is that just that empathy piece, that you're standing shoulder to shoulder with someone going through maybe the worst time of their lives. And I mean, how do you how do you manage that? To be obviously so empathetic, but then also to make sure that you can, keep after this day after day, week after week, year after year.
yeah, it gets hard, you know. Um, it's always the constant reminder that you're their champion, you're the one fighting for them. And at the day, you want to do the best job you can for your client and get them justice. So, for me, that keeps me going. Um, but it's tough. You're not only playing lawyer, but oftentimes you're kind of playing therapist too. And and this is where I, really, at least try to separate myself from the vast majority of personal injury lawyers out there. Is just taking the time to talk to your client, listen to them, listen to their concerns, their feelings, what they're afraid of going forward. And they do appreciate it. And it just helps to build that relationship. And, just taking 10 minutes to talk to a client, or 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is, to just listen to them. It does mean the world to your clients when you do that. But yeah, it does get tough at times, because then in your personal life, obviously, there's always certain challenges that everybody has to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and so it's a job where you're trying to fight for your client and do the best you can, and then there's somebody on the other side who's trying to stop you from doing your job, right? Whether that's an insurance company or a defense attorney. Yeah, it's but again, I love it, and I love just being able to fight for people and help them.
Yeah, so I think that's interesting, and that's actually different from my experience as a disability attorney, where, well, it depends. Sometimes it feels like the judge is your adversary, but it's supposed to be, a non-adversarial process. So I think that along with that empathy piece, there also has to be that willingness to fight. As you said, there's someone who's directly opposing you, right?
Yeah, and and I'm very competitive, and you always want to win, and you want to do the best job you can. I'm a very aggressive litigator, and so you're trying to do that, but just because of the court system and how slow things can be,
Mm-hmm.
there are just obstacles that get in the way, but your goal is to just keep moving the case forward, to get to a trial date, um, and so you can avoid any delay in your client getting justice. So there's that, there's definitely that tension, that happens when you're trying to do your job and the other side's trying to stop you, and you're trying to get to a trial date, and the court's docket is backlogged, and so on and so on. So
Yeah, I think that what would be interesting for people to hear, and I'm curious to hear as well, when you mentioned that you describe yourself as an aggressive litigator, what does that mean in terms of how you conduct either the case over the course of the case cycle, or is it more about your demeanor in the courtroom or during hearings, or how would you describe it?
no, not so much the demeanor in the courtroom or in depositions. There are attorneys out there who let's see, they will yell, they will scream, they will be. I don't know if we can swear on this podcast, but
Sure, go ahead.
anyway, yeah,
This
they can
is
be,
your time.
yeah, they can be assholes. And so I always conduct myself professionally. Remind myself that you have to be a professional, no matter how frustrating it can be dealing with the attorney on the other side. And so, I never yell at anybody or scream at anybody. And I feel that, particularly in depositions too, with witnesses, you still conduct yourself as a professional. And I feel like if you're nice to the witness, they're more willing to talk, which
Okay.
is good for you. As the attorney taking the deposition. I think for me, it's just trying to uncover, like leave no stone unturned. Okay. Um, that's how I approach it, and just, keep pushing the case. And, you know, I don't care how many depositions you got to take. You just keep hammering them with discovery and, taking depositions, doing whatever you can, um, to get the evidence you need, to set your case up for trial if you got to, go to trial, because it's not going to resolve.
Got it. Yeah. So this was something. So I'm learning so much about personal injury cases, and I was at a actually it was a seminar, or rather a conference, about traumatic brain injuries last week, and that this has come up, or it seems like, now that I'm thinking of it, there was another conference I went to where this came up about this idea of being a trial attorney rather than a litigation attorney, meaning that you're in this to win it at trial from the time you take the case, and rather than, you know, trying to find a path toward a quick settlement. I mean, it definitely
Mhm.
sounds like you're planning to take things to trial, from the outset.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get into that, that conference that you went to, I heard it was fantastic. I hope to go next year if they have it again. But offline, you'll have to tell me how it went. But it looked pretty good.
It was
Um,
great. It was great. So I'll definitely be happy to talk more about it. I think that, I mean, those TBI cases, and I'm sure that you know better than most, seem to be quite complicated, complex in terms of particularly in terms of the mild TBIs rather than, the moderate and severe.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. The mild TBIs are more challenging. And you have adjusters who say, well, it's mild. Okay, right. Um, it's a brain injury. Okay.
Right.
um, it's still, a mild brain injury doesn't mean it's a mild injury. And I've had these conversations with the adjusters, and sometimes they just don't understand it. um, it's the brain we're dealing with. Any
Right.
injury to the brain is incredibly serious. um,
Yeah. And it seems, to pick up on what you're saying, I mean, it seems like our sort of colleagues in the medical world haven't done us many favors by calling it a mild brain injury, right? Like why don't
yeah,
we call it a brain injury, and then there's moderate and then severe,
sure. Yeah, that's a
right?
good point. Maybe how they described it, maybe they should have done a better job.
Right. Like it's
uh,
like you think of a mild heart attack or something. Well, it's still a
right.
heart attack, right?
Yeah.
Um, oh shoot, I forgot what I was what oh so we were talking about you being an aggressive litigator, and then we sort of put a pin in it saying you didn't want to quite talk about the settlement versus trial approach.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We were gonna go into, as far as when I'm taking cases, how do I approach them? If it's a case that I wouldn't take the trial, I don't take the case.
Got
I
it.
only take a case if I believe, or if I look at everything and say, yes, I would take this case to trial. I don't take cases where I'm like, oh, I can get a quick settlement out of it. I don't do that. I know a lot of firms that follow that model. I personally don't believe in it. Um, I think at the end of the day, you're just setting yourself up for disappointment. You know, my goal is to get justice for the client, and you cannot accomplish that by just trying to get a quick settlement, or seeing if you can get something out of it. For me, it's, if you're not willing to go all the way, don't take the case.
So that's interesting. I mean, I think that's on the one hand that it means you're being really selective about the cases you take on. I think I also wonder, it seems like clients have been through something terrible. They don't want it to go on any longer than it needs to. Do you find that it's a challenge to communicate to your clients what it really means to pursue a case like this? And
Yeah, ultimately it's the client's decision at the end of the day. Initially have a conversation with the client about, what track the case could go down, whether it could be a lawsuit and eventually trial, and just try to have a conversation with them as far as, okay, are you willing to go all the way with the case? If that's what we have to do at the end of the day. And that could be for a variety of reasons, where the insurance company just makes a bad offer, or there's a liability dispute. Most of the time that the clients say, hey, whatever you recommend, we're in your hands. And then we go from there. Things can happen, life events during the pendency of the case, where a client might change their mind and say, hey, I really don't want to go to trial, kind of want to move on with my life. But the goal is, at the outset, you want to get justice for your client, and so you have to be willing to go all the way to fight for them.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, I no, it just seems like you're such a great first guest to have on here. I mean, you'd be a great guest at any point, but in particular, this notion of that if you want justice, you've got to fight for it. They're not going to, the defendant isn't going to give your client justice without you fighting for it, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Every case is different. Every client you have is different. Their life story is different. And that's also part of my approach, where, I have a boutique personal injury practice. I don't take every case that comes in. I am very selective. It's not a volume-based practice. And that allows me to give every client the attention that they deserve, versus, some of these firms that, they have hundreds of cases. And I don't know how they're able to give their clients their time and their energy, being spread so thin. So that's at least how I approach it, and so far it's working out pretty good.
Yeah. So why don't you tell me more, because I think some people might not. Well, when you mentioned that it's a boutique practice, right? There could be many kinds of boutiques. So what sort of boutique practice are you operating in terms of the cases that you're taking?
Yeah. Again, all personal injury cases. It's really a variety.
Okay.
So, I've got car accident cases, premises liability, so slip and falls, trip and falls. I've had some dog attack cases. It's a pretty big variety, as far as, the case type. I've handled dram shop cases, so those are cases against bars who overserve their guests, and they go out and cause a crash. Typically don't handle medical malpractice cases. There are some exceptions, and in those situations, I will co-counsel with somebody. So yeah, it's all personal injury, but really being selective on the cases and clients that I take on. Again, I want to make sure that I'm giving every client the attention that they deserve, so I can fight for them. And so that's just my approach to it. And as of now, I've got locations in Atlanta and Boston. Hopefully at some point expand beyond that. But yeah, it's just really trying to run a very efficient practice, leveraging some of the latest technology in the personal injury space. It's really been a game changer over the last couple of years, just with some of the software that's out there that's utilizing AI. It's it just really can streamline your practice, and that allows you time to really dig into your clients' cases because you're doing less admin stuff.
Right. Well, so something that's really that I'm fascinated by, and really, it's funny. I told someone I was obsessed by these things. He's like, no, you're not obsessed. You're passionate about it. So one of the things that I'm passionate about is this idea of understanding client stories and really, they're in this context. We've talked about how they can't fight for themselves, but it's also, there's another way of looking at that where it says, they need you to tell their story. And this is something you mentioned today. I mean, you mentioned the last time that we talked. You've talked about the attorneys who you think are really. I think you said that the attorneys that you wanted to emulate are I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, are the ones who are really great at understanding and telling their clients' stories. And so first of all, if that's correct, I'd love to hear you talk more about that, because I think that's something that I think people get the fighting piece maybe, but in terms of this storytelling piece, I just want to hear more from you about that.
Yeah. So really a huge inspiration for me, and what really was just a huge impact to the way that I practice. So probably I would say the best personal injury trial lawyer out there today. So Nick Rowley, who he's the founder of Trial Lawyers for Justice. He's an incredible attorney. The attorneys who work with him are incredible. I know a couple of them personally. It's just inspiring the way he fights for his clients. Again, he's probably the best trial lawyer in the country, and he goes all the way to fight for them. And he teaches that you need to spend time with your client, get to know them, to be able to effectively tell their story to the jury. So that's something that I always keep in mind and strive to do.
Yeah, I wonder, and you've talked about just the importance of taking those calls with clients, even if it's 10 or 15 minutes. What is there a certain way that you go about, I mean, doing those early client interviews to help you more quickly understand where they're at, or is it something that just has to occur over time?
So the initial client call, the way that I do it, first it just depends on what works best for them. Some clients they'll want to meet on Zoom, some will want a phone call, some want to meet in person. I do think that it helps, and it's the best way to approach it is, even if you have that first meeting on Zoom or it's a phone call, that you should at some point during the case start meeting with your client in person. And this is, again, the top trial lawyers in the country. They do a great job with this, and they really preach this. Is, when you go to your client's house and you're sitting there and you see the family photos and you get a sense of what things they liked to do in their lives before, this incident, this crash, turned their world upside down. It becomes more real, but it also helps you to understand their life more than just looking at the medical records and seeing some injury photographs, or just reviewing the file. You really, in order to do the best job that you can with telling your client's story, you have to meet with them in person at some point and spend time with them.
Okay. Yeah. Again, new to the practice, but or actually just new to this area of the law. But my sense is that there are a lot of attorneys who simply aren't doing that.
Yeah, I think, well, especially if you run a volume-based practice, you probably don't have the time to do it.
Yeah.
But I can tell you 150%, that by meeting with your client, spending time with them, and, I've done this, and spending time with them, and whether it's lunch or dinner, you truly then get to connect with your client, have a better relationship with them.
Yeah, I heard about one of the presenters at that TBI conference was joking about an attorney, I can't remember his name, who I guess goes to clients' homes and cooks them dinner. And he's like, come on, that's a little much. Like, people don't really want you in their house cooking dinner. Like, you can just go in there and sit in the living room like a normal person. But so are you cooking clients dinner, or are you?
Well, I wouldn't. Not that I'm a bad cook, but no, I haven't done that yet. I certainly would be open to doing it, but I think that's one of those situations where, if you're a really good cook, then you're probably, going to make some great meal, and it's no concern. Particularly if you have a good amount of dishes that you could make,
Right.
and right. I mean, there's a few things that I can do a decent job with, but yeah, no, I mean, listen, if you can go cook meals for your client, I think that's incredible. But yeah, I think it's, again, particularly, I mean, listen, if your client has, really serious injury, maybe they can't cook. And so you going over there to cook for them, I mean, that's super helpful, and I'm sure it's really appreciated. So yeah, I don't think that, anybody would ever be offended if their lawyer came over and said, hey, like, let me do something nice for you. Let me cook a meal for the family, and sit down and we can eat and talk and get to know each other a little bit more. I think, somebody saying, hey, they just want you to come in and sit down and leave, I don't, I never got that impression.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't think any of my clients would have wanted me cooking for them necessarily. Although I can do, I grew up in New Orleans. I can make an okay jambalaya, but
Oh, all right. Yeah, I mean, hey, like, that's pretty good, right? I've never been to New Orleans. It's on the list, but I hear the food there is incredible.
Oh man, yeah, it's yeah, it really is. I was so spoiled growing up there. Like, even like just the school lunches that we had, like the gumbo and the jambalaya and the red beans and rice they served at school lunch was like, it was amazing. Even the teachers would, like, get lunch on, get school lunch on those days because it was so good. I was definitely spoiled.
Well, it's better than the school lunch I had. Yeah, no, we didn't have any sort of cuisine like that. Nothing nothing along those lines. So, I
Now,
mean, go ahead.
and where did you grow up?
So I grew up on the North Shore of Boston. So a small, well, it's not really that small of a town, but so Saugus, Massachusetts, which is about 15 minutes north of Boston. Um, so it's on the North Shore, which I am biased and will say the North Shore is the best part of Massachusetts.
Okay.
And and yeah, it was a good place to grow up. There was a lot to do. And again, it was nice being close to Boston. Um, but yeah, but it was, blue collar city, a blue collar town. Um, you know, it, if, have you ever been to Boston?
Actually, yeah, I lived in Boston for a couple of years, and I was
Okay.
laughing because I think that when you that's a pretty bold claim that the North Shore is the best part of Massachusetts. I think you might have some you might be starting more fights than starting more fights than you can finish with a claim
Oh,
like
I'll defend that all day.
that.
When somebody tells me what beats the North Shore, then I'll certainly listen. But I strongly, that's a belief that I hold very dear. That that's the best area of Massachusetts. Um, yeah. So with Boston, where did you live?
I lived in, let's see here. I lived in the Fenway area for about a year, and
Okay. Yeah,
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 and then I lived in the South End for about a year.
yeah, yeah. And I love the city. I mean, Boston's great. It's but when I'm, as far as like the suburbs go, um, I feel like the North Shore is the best. Had you actually traveled up there at any point, like explored it or no?
No, no, I haven't. So I'm in Maine now. But I was in Boston. That was like a former life when I was before law school when I was working in architecture. So that's like a whole other story. But no, I mean, shame on me. I haven't been to the North Shore.
Um, I love Maine too, by the way. What part of Maine are you in?
Right now I'm in more central Maine. I was in Portland for about
Okay.
10 years. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Portland's great.
Yeah.
Um, we used to, I used to go up to Portland. So my brother, who's 9 years younger than me, when we were kids, we'd go up to Portland with my grandparents, usually like once a year
Great.
in the spring. And yeah, it's always a great trip. My wife and I were up there maybe a year and a half ago. We went in the wintertime, which it was definitely colder than I was planning on it being. And but again, just a great city, great food, by the way,
Yes.
in Portland.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually it's funny. Most people most people how do I say have most people think that winter is not the best time to appreciate Maine or Portland, but I think
Yeah,
I think it's definitely easier to get restaurant reservations that time of year. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's probably true. But yeah, I always love going up to Portland.
yeah, yeah. I'm more central Maine now. Definitely miss Portland a lot.
Mhm.
Although I'm only about an hour away, so my fiance and I get over there a fair amount.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, that's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of the best of both worlds. Gosh, there was a couple things that we haven't talked about that I would like to hear from you if you have a few more minutes.
Yeah, I got a few more minutes.
Great. So yeah, so I think we've talked a lot about your approach to the work and to clients, maybe in more general terms. I just wonder if there is a single client or perhaps more than one client that really really stand out in your mind, either really for whatever reason, but maybe I'm thinking in terms of, you know, given how challenging this work can be, maybe a client or a case that it was tough, but really had a rewarding outcome.
It's tough to name just one. Um, I mean, I can give you, a couple of examples. Within the last couple of years, I represented a little boy who was attacked by a pit bull and suffered a pretty horrific injury.
Oh my gosh.
And he was, I think, 3 years old at the time. That still sticks with me. These are the cases that you don't forget.
Yeah.
I had a client who I represented for, I think, like 4 or 5 years. She had a bad injury with a surgery, and I was able to get a pretty good resolution for her case, and she was able to. She was homeless at the time, and she was able to buy her first home,
Oh my gosh.
which was really special, and invited me to her home, and so and the one with the little boy, I got a significant recovery for him, and that'll hopefully help pay for college down the road. So yeah, it's those cases where you truly have an impact on somebody's life, that stick with you.
Wow. No, I think all of those sound like, sounds like nothing you'll
Yeah,
never forget.
yeah, and it's tough to. I mean, there's definitely more, but those are two recent ones that just jump right out. And I've got some current cases too that are pretty tragic. But as far as ones that have resolved, um, yeah, those two jump out at me.
Yeah. Yeah, I can certainly see why. I think, yeah, we've talked a bit about how you do this work. I wonder if I'll ask two questions because I'm curious
Yeah.
about both, but if we're running short on time, you can just choose one, whichever one you think is more interesting. But so the first one would be, um, you know, if you could teach something to, because you've talked about the people that you want to emulate, but I'm sure you have plenty to teach either other attorneys or paralegals. So if there was something you could teach them about maybe how to do the practice differently or think about the practice differently, what would that be? So that's, we'll put that as a possible question. And then I think you've started your practice. You're about you're almost at your year anniversary.
Almost at the year of when I started it. Yep. So it'd be June will be 1 year.
Okay. Yeah. So we're coming up on the, we're
Yeah.
coming right up. So, and then I think the other thing would be what have, what's been the most gratifying part of starting that new practice? And you can feel free to answer both, but I just didn't want to take up too much of your time.
Oh, yeah. I can answer both, I think, pretty quickly. So with starting the practice, what's been the most gratifying? Um, being able to do things my way.
Okay.
Um, being able to provide client service the way I always envisioned. Um, and also the support that I've received from all my colleagues and friends and family. It really, the amount of cases that were referred to me in the last year, I had never received as many referrals at any time before starting the new firm. So it was just really an outpouring of support, which I'm really incredibly grateful for. And the practice continues to grow, and I've got big plans for the future. and grown the practice even more. So yeah, it's been great. And
Well,
the
actually,
other, yeah.
sorry, I want to pick up on something you said there, just in terms of the amount of referrals that you've gotten. I mean,
Yeah.
sounds like people were ready for you to start doing things your way. If you're getting that many referrals,
Yeah,
right?
I don't know if they were. It's hard for me to say if they were ready for that, but I think people knew how I approached the practice of law and the empathy that I had for clients, and just the client service I had provided throughout my career, up to that point. So I think, when I announced I was starting my own practice, and we can talk about this, maybe we'll do another podcast at some point. I can, get more into detail on, brand building or whatever,
Mhm.
kind of my thoughts behind that. Yeah, I think I had built a pretty good reputation with, colleagues and friends and family as far as how I approach the practice of law, and just doing a really great job. And for me, communication with clients was a top priority, and I feel like I do a pretty good job with that. So yeah, it just naturally and organically, it just happened that way. So
That's amazing. Yes, and I would love to have you back on again. Absolutely. And then,
uh,
but
yeah. So the second question you had,
yeah,
I'll answer that as well. So actually, remind me. We'll have to chop this part out. But what was the second?
no, it was a question about if you think I know you've been very humble and talking about the lawyers you admire and the kind of things that you kind of practice you hope to emulate. But then I wondered if there were things that you thought maybe other attorneys, paralegals,
Oh, sure.
other people doing this
Yeah.
type of work, um,
Yep.
maybe a lesson or something you could share with them.
Um, the lesson that I would share, um, particularly with other attorneys, newer attorneys starting out, paralegals, whoever, is that just remember you're representing somebody on the other side whose life has been impacted by no fault of their own. And they have their story and how it's impacted their life, and they're trusting you to fight for them. So just always keep that in mind. And what truly helps is just reaching out to the client. Call them, text them, just let them know that you're thinking of them, you're working on their case, so they're not left in the dark. And I feel that works for me. I know clients appreciate it, and it just when you go above and beyond, it really makes a difference. So
Very well said. And no, I definitely, it's clear to me that you are out there fighting the good fight as just as I suspected. So, man, this has been such a pleasure. And if there's anything that I haven't asked or that you want to share, please feel free.
yeah, no, I think we covered a lot today, and I truly appreciate you having me on. Particularly honored that I was your first guest. Um, and so I wish you all the success with this podcast. I know it's going to be great. Um, and yeah, I really appreciate and love the fact that you're highlighting attorneys who are doing the same type of work that I'm doing. So
Well, you're most welcome, and yeah, thanks for your good wishes. You've certainly done your part, so I'm grateful to you for that.
All right, that's it. Thank you so much for watching this first episode, and stay tuned for more interviews with the